Hey guys, welcome back to the Silent Broheen channel, bringing you my fourth and last single target DPS spec, well, fourth and last DPS spec that I have for this character right now. But this one's going to be about Tempest, and this spec actually is not mine. It is a guildmate's of mine. His name is Bhaltair, on the Deepwood Shard from the Guild Paradise Found. So good shout out to him. This Tempest spec was a lot better than the one I created. However, the only downer with it is the learning process with it, which really isn't even that bad. So, but basically, what I was doing was I was doing a lot of abilities macroed into one button, thinking you can make this a one button spam, just like all the other warrior specs. And it turned out that I was losing significant amount of DPS doing that. So I went on my guild site forum and took a look at his spec and laid it all out and started playing with it and getting the rotation down, and it seemed to be doing a lot more DPS. Only problem was it's like 11 abilities long or 12 abilities long, so I only really use one bar. So I just found ways to macro a couple things together, just two buttons at a time, macroed together, just so I could double tap it twice in a row and save some bar space. So let's take a look at how the spec. What the hell am I doing? Take a look at how the spec is laid out. It's 61 Tempest, 15 Riftblade, and the 5 in Riftblade for elemental precision, or 5 goes into elemental precision, 3 in elemental empowerment, 5 in affinity, and we have 2 in burning blood. So actually I think, yeah, this is right. And you want to use Paragon for your 0 point soul tree, because you do get Way of the River in there, which increases your physical crit. And this spec is all about physical crit. It is 100% single target and 100% high damage burst. Everything is all timed, so that way everything that comes off of cooldown is ready to be casted as soon as it comes off of cooldown. So let me show you the macros I made for it, which you don't have to use. If you want to lay it all out, you can. But I prefer to not have 12 spots on a bar, which I don't want to have them all 100% full. I like simplicity. So this is the main macro that you need. Either way, in either build, whether you have it all laid out singly or not, you still want to have this macro. So it's show charged pulse, suppress macro failures, cast focused fire, cast charged pulse, cast double pulse. I did make a finisher macro, which I would suggest if you're learning this, don't do, but it's just cast arc and cast Skyfall. Now the very beginning of the rotation starts with a delayed pulse and then a lightning torrent, so I just put delayed pulse and lightning torrent together just because it's the first two abilities, and they both go on cooldown, so you cast it until you can't cast anymore, and that's pretty much it. I put the two dots together to save room, which is cast Flamespear and cast Electricity Blast, and then we have a Wavelength block here, or so it's called, where actually that one I'm not using. No, don't pay attention to that one. We have Wavelength on its own here. So the way it's described in the guild forum is that you have a normal rotation and then you have a Wavelength block. And by saying block, we don't mean like actually blocking anything. We're talking about like just a segment in the rotation where you start with using your Wavelength ability and going through that rotation, which is different from the normal rotation. So it's like a block. If you think about it like laid out on a bar, it's like a block of abilities you want to use only while you're in Wavelength. And yeah, a little bit confusing, but that's what everybody's calling it, I guess, and I'm not really sure why. So I would just call it a Wavelength rotation. But alright, so as far as this rotation goes and buffs used, we'll start with buffs used. You want to start with enhanced conductivity and power, electromagnetic shield, avatar of wind, stormblade, way of the river, and keep close training down here. Don't use it, but close training is like electromagnetic shield. They're exact opposites of each other. You can either reduce range damage taken by 10% or melee damage taken, and both will increase your damage done, but they do not stack with each other. So we stick with electromagnetic because this is a ranged spec. So the way this starts off is for the entire rotation, you want to use your delayed pulse, Lightning Torrent, and then you want to go into Wavelength. So once you activate Wavelength, it resets the cooldown of all Tempest abilities for 15 seconds. Charge Pulse and Dual Pulse are no longer on cooldown, so you can cast both of those instantly. And Dual Pulse, or Double Pulse is an ability that we have. Everything starts with a D. That's one annoying thing about Tempest. Where is it? Double Pulse has to be cast after a Charge Pulse. Ignores global cooldown, so just mash the button as fast as you can. And then hit him with a finisher after 3, and then you should be able to do 5 more Charged Pulses. Or Charge Pulse and Double Pulse macro. You should be able to do 5 more of those. If you have really good ping, very little lag, you can get 6. But once that's done, then you hit with the finisher again and then go into the normal rotation, which is, back into a delayed pulse and a lightning torrent, arc, then go into charged pulse and your double pulse, charged pulse, double pulse macro once, then put your 2 dots on them, hit them with your dot finisher, then hit them with a dual pulse and a shock pulse, which are macroed together here, and then hit them with a Skyfall, which is the other part of this macro. So I will put these rotations down in the description box so you guys can actually see them, because this is going to be extremely hard to follow in the video. So, but I want the video to be here to show you exactly how, and it gets kind of complicated, so I'm hoping I'm not going to mess this up here, but here goes. So we're going to just start with delayed pulse, lightning torrent. The point of this is that you're hitting arc right when delayed pulse comes off, and it increases the damage done with that, because delayed pulse is one of your heaviest hitting abilities. So once I'm done with this rotation, I'll actually hit a lightning torrent, hit with an arc, and then use wavelength and just spam the charged pulse button. Hit him with the arc after 3. Now this is where you're going to try to hit 5. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, and apparently I have really bad lag. So then you can go back into delayed pulse and lightning torrent, and as you saw there, you don't want that charged pulse to hard cast after you're done with the wavelength section of it, because it will mess up the rotation. But really, I mean, it's pretty simple. Once you get the hang of it, it's simple. So, and every time you want to use wavelength on cooldown, so once wavelength comes off a cooldown, you go back into that wavelength rotation, and once the wavelength rotation is over, make sure you don't hard cast the last charged pulse. And we're doing 11k, for the most part. There is one ability in here that is AoE, which I believe I just casted it, and that's might have a little bit to do with it. So, alright, back into wavelength. Now, if your ping is really slow at this point, more than likely you could add in a Skyfall in between. You could do, instead of doing 5 charge pulse macros during the wavelength section there, you could probably do 3 of them, then hit arc, and then after the first arc, hit another 3, and then hit a Skyfall and call it there. and you could probably get away with that. But if you have good ping, if you have very minimal lag, this is the best way to do it. So hopefully you guys can get the hang of this spec. It fucking kicks ass. It's very fun. It's just a little rotation heavy, but once you get used to it, I mean, you sit here doing 11K, and again, you know, I made all 4 of these videos from all my DPS specs here at the same time as you know, one right after another, to kind of knock them out and get them out of the way. So I'm in the same gear for every one, so you guys can actually see, you know, there was one spec, which was my Warlord, which got me down to like 9k damage. But the rest of them were like, you know, as far as single target goes, you know, 10 to 11k, and then Champion was just like, you know, huge DPS for AoE. So, but yeah, so that's it, guys. So I'm going to write down that rotation and the macros in the description. Hopefully you guys get the hang of it. This is so far the best way that I have found, or I should say that Bhaltair has found, for doing Tempest. So thanks again, Bhaltair, for letting me use this for the guild channel. And, you know, I'll more than likely send you a little gift in the mail. So, alright, thanks, buddy. And thank you guys for watching. So if you like the video, hit the like button, subscribe to it if you like what we're doing. And have an awesome day trying out this spec. Thanks.